So we talk about this idea that we're lowering the level through USL talent on some of these teams because of how many players are getting taken into international camp. So my question then, now that you've seen the performance of some of these teams that were absolutely mutilated, I like that word, by the international window, do you think this sent a message out to the higher ups, Daddy Don and his buddies, about changing some of our roster restrictions? Do we think this opens somebody's eyes to say, you know what? We're getting the exposure that we need to get. We're getting the players over to competitions that they need to be in. We're raising the level of our individual players. It's time to start saying, okay, our owners can our owners can pick out good players and spend money on good players, and it's going to come back and be a good return. Is it time to start saying, okay, let's do it?
At this point, there's been so many signs that they should do it. I can't imagine if they have no plans to do it. I can't imagine this is what pushes them over the edge. I mean, the amount of competitions that they have been getting MLS teams involved in, and the amount of money that has been coming into the league in recent years, I don't understand why they haven't changes to the salary cap to kind of be in proportion with that. And I can't imagine that an international break, even though, obviously things would look a lot better if we had more money and had more depth on teams. I just can't imagine that this is like the straw that breaks the camel's back and gets them to loosen up on salary rules, even though I fully think that they should, because it's just ridiculous that it's been how many years now, and I feel like we still have generally the same roster rules as how we did back in like 2015 when NYC were bringing in all the retirement league players. So I don't know what it's going to take to get them to loosen them. And I know they don't want to just like completely throw like all the salary cap rules out the window. Is I know that's a whole other conversation that could take us another like 45 minutes, but
Which we've had already, by the
um
way, multiple times.
yeah, but I I don't see it making a change for salary cap rules, unfortunately.
So the way I look at this is MLS is held by a CBA, right? They can't just go changing rules willy nilly. They've got an agreement that says every year we're going to increase GAM, TAM, YAM, BAM, WHAM, whatever, by X amount until we hit the deadline for what we've agreed upon now, and then we'll renegotiate. So my question is, I don't know when it expires. I thought it was relatively soon. I thought it might have been 2024. I'll double check here. MLS CB, MLS CBA expiration. MLS will increase player spending, blah blah blah, as defined in CBA. 2027. They renewed it in 2020, and then it went all the way through 2027. So we've got a while to go before it happens. But here's what the outlook looks like right now. By 2027, so right now we're in 2023. The salary budget's 5.2 million. You get 1.9 million dollars a GAM, 2.72 million dollars a TAM, and available spend on your roster um, is just under 10 million. And you can go over those figures by using designated players and 3 players through the league's U22 initiative. So you can spend like transfer fee up to that much. By 2027, the salary budget will be 7 million, just a little bit over that. You will more than double your GAM in 3.9 million. TAM will go down to 2.2 million, and the available roster spend will go up by 4 million to 13. So they'll have player spending increases as well. So um, 12.5% of the incremental media revenue will go into being available to be spent. 25% of that will be 25, 26, and 27 seasons. So there are like it is going to get better, no doubt about it. And I think that's why people don't understand this is because they don't know these figures, which I didn't know until I just looked them up. Like you're looking at an increase of $4 million on your roster spending, not including designated players. That right there is your middle of the pack group, right? The question is, will the world football market correlate with this increase, right? So you've seen some of the figures for the best players in the world go skyrocketing over the last what 3 years probably. It's just been straight to the moon. Um, that has made the average player way more expensive than they should be. So that is my question here. I agree with you. I don't think it'll change, but my question is come 2027, is that when we see it happen? Is that when we see the wheels come off and say, let's do this? And that's kind of where I'm feeling, you know what, maybe it is. Maybe that's where we wait and we say, okay, when we renegotiate, salary budget's going to go up to 10 million. Gam and Tam are going to go away. Available roster spend jumps to 20, and we just say go at it.
That just feels like such a long time to get to that point. I mean, I know it's growing. It's I just looked up the numbers from 2015 because I was curious to see how it compared. And the salary was 3.5 million. So I mean it's gone up since that point, but the amount of money that the league is collecting in transfer fees compared to where you were in 2015. I'm looking at a list right now of top sales for MLS. And the top 25 sales, only two of them came in 2015 or earlier. It was Miazga to Chelsea for like 4.6, and that was the 25th highest. And it was Josie to Villarreal for about 7 million. The rest of them
where did
are,
both those guys come from?
is
Oh,
that's not the agenda we're talking about right
that is
now.
absolutely the agenda.
But
Red Bull makes the world takes,
no, no,
baby.
no, no, no. But the rest of the list, every 2018 or later is when these sales came from. And I mean, we're talking massive numbers compared to that. Almiron went for 24. Duran I feel like barely league. He went for almost 17 million. Pepe went for 16 million after one season here. Even PT went for 16 million. I mean, we know Almada is going to go for crazy, ridiculous money. I bet Renner goes for very good money as well. The proportion of money that the league is in versus how quickly the salary cap is growing, I almost am worried that it's going to be a handicap in terms of us being able to continue this wave of building up players, sending them on. Because I feel like the momentum is there right now. I really wish we could build on it more to really capitalize on it and go get like a bunch more Thiago Almada type players. I think it would be fantastic if we have like really good scouting in South America and we beat the European teams to signing the next Thiago Almada, and then we can build them up and get the for selling them onto Europe. So I'm hoping that by 2027 we can really have strong changes in the salary cap. But I'm just worried that the growth in terms of change in salary cap is just too slow amount of money that the league is bringing in from transfers.
So as you were talking, I had a whole bunch of things jump into my head. So I'm going to try and say them without forgetting them because I didn't write them down because I'm not bright. 2027 is when the CBA ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
2026, we have the FIFA World Cup happening in our backyard. You have to assume that's going to do something to the way that this is gonna pan out. And that's what I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about is you're gonna see a ton of top level players in the United States playing football every single day. Fans are gonna get excited. They're gonna pick teams. They're gonna say, "Oh man, this guy's from over here, whatever." And then come 2027, they've got a big increase in available roster spend to say, "Hey, let's do it." And then 2028, when they ratify the CBA, open it up and get going. Flip side, I'm questioning if the reason that it's growing so slowly is to appease the four old as dirt owners who are afraid to actually spend money in this league. We know who they are. We won't attack them. We won't address them. But there is something to be said about the risk versus reward of investing in this league. This league was, and we have had this conversation before, but this league was not started in 1800 with a bunch of people who played for their club and just wanted to play against each other. This league started because somebody put a lot of money into it, which means that person took on the risk of what this league was and has a lot more power than somebody who bought in 2 years ago. That being said, I think we're getting to a point where we are getting to overpower them, which is pretty good because eventually they're going to have to fold and either sell their team or actually buy into it. But that's kind of where I see the reason for this slow increase is because the people who have been here for 27 years are not used to things going the way they are. They don't know what the global market is like. They don't know how to invest in things, and they're going to lose money if they do. My last note.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Finish your notes before you forget them.
I think I might have forgotten. go ahead and speak, and I will think as you speak.
I was just gonna say I think you're right in that maybe it is catering to the few owners that are just really slow on the ball in terms of spending. But God, I hate that so much. I'm so sick of seeing teams like RSL or Vancouver or San Jose that just have zero ambition to spend and try and be competitive in this league. I mean, I'm looking up a list of purchases in the league, and I am on page 375 players in, yet to see a single RSL player.
Hey,
I
you
mean,
better give Vancouver credit. They're top 5.
Vancouver's not top 5.
They used to be.
They're not even top 25.
No shot. Where's Chow
I mean, I don't
Alexander?
know how accurate.
Where's Chow Alexander? It was
I don't
13
think
mil.
Was he?
Absolutely. I remember it being a big deal because we had this conversation when it happened, saying that they never spend and now they're spending $13 million. And that's why it's the biggest joke in the world because he's played like 4 times.
This says 3.6 for Chow Alexander.
No shot. You keep
3.6 euros. You can look at it if you want. But yeah,
You're on
I mean,
transfer market.
yeah. I don't think I saw San Jose in here either. I mean, I'm 75 players deep. And the teams I consistently see at the top, it's like NYC, Austin, LAFC, Atlanta, FC. It's like it's these new teams that come in. They're willing to spend money. They're willing to splash cash. Try. I don't care if they fail. Just try, but at least try and go bring somebody in. LA Galaxy did this in 2010 and it completely changed the league. They spent the money. They brought in big name players, Keane, Beckham. They had Landon Donovan, and it absolutely paid off. But I would rather see a team try and fail than just cater and protect the teams like RSL or I don't want to say a team and then they end up having players in here. But like I'll just say an RSL or maybe like a Vancouver or potentially like a maybe Chicago. I don't know if I saw any really. Oh, Chicago had Shaqiri. And okay, Chicago has a couple players
Mm-hmm.
in the top 50, but you know what I'm saying. I didn't see any San Jose, no RSL. Like, why do? And I know that this conversation is going right down the route of, well, then just introduce pro rel so that they get punished for this. But
I was gonna
I know
ask if we wanted
I'm
to
not
start
diving
that.
down that conversation. I'm not diving down that conversation because it's 10:30 already. But um, I do wish we had a way to punish it without, risking just folding teams in the league because we want to introduce pro rel and nobody wants to go watch RSL play or San Jose play in the second division with when they're in the top division and they can only pull like 12,000 fans. Um,
Twelve
but
thousand
yeah,
fans in
I
the
really
second
wish.
division would be great, though.
I think if you just, yeah, 12, it probably would be, but they wouldn't have 12,000 fans in the second division. Um, but yeah, I think if you loosened the cap, the salary cap, and you made it so that you reward the teams like Atlanta or LAFC who are willing to go and you will see the teams like RSL, San Jose, or whoever get punished not spending. I think that is, in my opinion, the best way to do it without just introducing pro rel and potentially just having teams fold. I don't know if you. I imagine you were looking into Chow Alexander
I was. It didn't.
transfer fee.
It wasn't up there. I messed. I don't know what it was, but I messed it up. It was. You know what it might have been? It might have been one of their like top ever signings, and that's where I got it confused with. Here's
It
the
was.
issue.
I think it was like second behind Catalini.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's probably right. Anyways, the issue that comes with the way the league is run is not there's no punishment for no pro rel if you lose, right? Because NFL, MLB, NBA, none of them are pro rel and they're totally fine. The issue with it is that the quality of player that comes out of the MLS Super Draft is not nearly at the quality of player that comes out of the NFL draft, the NBA draft, MLB draft. It's just not. So that's where there's there's no risk or reward for finishing in last, which is why teams will have to dig deep into their youth academy to find success. And this brings me back to the point that I had forgotten. You had mentioned, the salary cap is increasing at a rate that is not that doesn't coincide with the increase in revenue from player sales. I would almost I wouldn't bet it because I'm not a betting man. But if I was, I'd probably put a decent little prop bet on the idea that there is an unwritten agreement between all of the owners that we are going to slowly increase what we do, but to ensure that the league has longevity and to ensure that the league can be sustainable over the next 5 to 7 years, we need to heavily reinvest what we use for homegrown players, which is why now that if you sell a homegrown player, you keep all of the money instead of going 50-50 or 30, whatever. Because now you feed that back in, you develop more players, you develop football around the area, you develop football for the nation, and we've created a sustainable system. At some point, that becomes unnecessary and redundant. Right now, I don't believe that it is because we are priding ourselves and parading ourselves out like a Netherlands or an Eredivisie type league. We are going to develop players. We are going to sell them. We'll buy low, sell high, or we will develop from within and sell for 100% profit, which is a great way to get the stock of your league up, to get people still looking at your league as, okay, I can go there and it's not the end of my career, which is not the case. It was never a retirement league, but because people had a negative outlook on it, we weren't sending people out. It had that feel. So I believe that until 2027, I think that you're going to see way more homegrown to Europe. But I think in 2027, and this, I don't know if it's a hope or a thought because it could be a little bit of both. I think that's when we start our push to be a league of competition between your top five in Europe, both monetarily and then the way that we play. Because I think what's happening is what we're going to again, this is my brain now going mega, right? You're going to develop football at a young age for a lot of people. This just started a couple of years ago. So that's why you're seeing the 17-year-olds who started at age 12 start to make these big moves. But now you're doing it at even younger ages, 7, 8, 9. You're teaching football methodology, you're teaching club ideology, you're teaching all of these things that we learn in our coaching classes at very, very young ages so they understand the game, not just the physical attributes to do it. By creating that network of players that are able to understand the game and physically perform it, you're creating a stronger floor for what we are producing out of our academy. Then in 2027, if we open up our spending and start bringing people in, coaches and players, by the way, but if you start bringing in the best of the best, or at least one of the best for each team, now your ceiling gets really high too. So it used to be the ceiling was really high, the floor was really low, and there was a whole bunch of empty space in between, right? Now we're trying to basically close that gap and create a more dense, attractive league, for lack of a better term. We're trying to make it so that people will either. I hear this thing a lot where nobody grows up wanting to play for New York Red Bulls. Nobody grows up wanting to play for Atlanta United. Everybody grows up wanting to play for Manchester United or whatever. And I think that's what they're trying to change with this whole mindset of creating systems in tons of cities where people are looking up every week and saying, I want to go to that game. You know, I think it was John Tolkien's story, right? Like I was a ball boy at age 8 for Red Bull. I remember going to every single game all the time. And now I'm living my dream of being on that field, right? That wasn't the case 10 years ago. So they're trying to create this feeling of, okay, people want to play here. So they're going to try and become the best that they can be so they can get into that first team. And then we're going to supplement it with these big name players. We're going to create a dense league that has a really good youth base and really good in their prime players. But we have to be patient to get there. Because if we're not patient to get there, the whole thing falls apart because our floor isn't on a good foundation and our ceiling has holes, right? If we don't patch it up and we don't put the good foundation down, we don't get a successful product. And this is my business brain going off, which I don't have, by the way. I'm an engineer. So me and Daddy Don, we're on the same page. I get what he's trying to do. I'm here for you, my guy. Jump on the pod sometime. Let's chat your strategy. Let's do this.
I I think a good point to mention that they seem to be building from the ground up in terms of like supporting academies and getting more guys developed and moved on. And I mean, you could see it just in the list of players that have moved on. I see a number of guys here that were like academy guys, like Brendan Aronson, Alfonso Davies, Gaga Slanina, Brian Reynolds, Kevin Paredes. Like the list goes on and on and on. Um, so I have a kind of a question for you, but I wanted to mention one other point before I jump into that, so then you can answer it while it's still on topic.
Okay.
I feel like I feel like to your point on making MLS a more of, I guess I'll say more of a destination. So, talking about the guys who want to like, look up to playing for an MLS side. I can't see that being the case while MLS continues to be a feeder league to other leagues. I just feel like you can definitely have like it can be a dream to make it to the MLS level, but I feel like it's step to get to like the ultimate goal because we continue to send players to other countries where presumably you're sending it to better leagues in terms of reputation and prestige. I feel like those teams are going to be the teams that they ultimately want to get to. So, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily the case for Tolkien because I don't know John himself, but I would imagine it's definitely like a goal for him to get to Red Bull, considering especially he grew up as a ball boy. So to get to Red Bull, I think is definitely a dream. But I would also imagine that he has aspirations beyond Red Bull and to probably to another level, which might be like that dream that you were talking about of people growing up being like, I want to play for Manchester United. I want to play for Barcelona.
He's an Everton
Because
fan,
I
so
see that as like, okay, so Everton for him in that case. Like I think that's their end goal. Whereas like, the dream of playing for Red Bull feels like a step as opposed to like at the top of the staircase. But the question I wanted to give you
hold on. Let me.
was
Does it build off of that? Because I do have a comment on
no, it's different.
that. Okay. Well, I agree with you that right now it's a step. However, 10 years ago, the step was we just did the story on Pro 40, right? If you haven't, or actually, we're doing the story on Pro 40.
Yeah, it won't be out by this
Oh,
time.
a week from when this goes out, I think. So when you listen to it,
Yeah.
you're going to hear the story of how people look down on this Pro 40 team as a demotion, right? 10 years ago, everybody dreamed of playing in Europe because that's where all the big players were, that's where all the stars were, that's where all the media attention was. MLS was spoken poorly about, which meant that they saw it as a stepping stone for one big thing and one big thing only. Right now, I think that the end goal is still there. However, I don't believe that people look at playing in MLS as a youth academy product as like a, oh, I'm only here for as long as somebody calls my name to go overseas and then I'm gone. You look at, I'm trying to think of a good example here. I mean, I don't have anything for this, right? But Jesus Ferreira, first homegrown designated player in league history. My guess is after the seasons he had people in Europe calling his name, but he chose to stay and take the DP tag in Dallas. Is that a first of its kind? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't done that much research into it, but my guess is that is going to become more normal. Where if a team in Belgium's, bottom half of Belgian league comes calling with a $3 million price tag, and some other team says, "Hey, no, we want you to stick around. We're going to pay you X amount of money, and we're going to also bring in, this other guy who's going to be a world beat. You guys are going to get together and be really, really good." I think more people will choose to stay here by the time 2027 comes around. I'm right now. I think it's still a jumping point because that's what we're trying to do. But I think by the time we get all this stuff together, I think people are going to see this as a, I don't mind being. That's just me.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I mean, I'm looking at the list of players that we have sold, and I'm saying to myself, like, just looking at the top 25, if we managed to keep even 10 of these guys while they were still at their prime, like when they were getting sold off, like if you managed to hold on to a Mark McKay, a Matt Miazga back in like 2015, if you got to hold on to Chris Richards and built him up a bit more, even Diego Rossi. I mean, they sold Diego Rossi to Turkey. Like I don't see the Turkish league being that much farther ahead of MLS. If you can hold on to these guys, a few more of them, even like Jordi Mihailovic, and give teams the ability to spend money and keep them here, like a Jesus Ferreira. I think that's a great example. And continue to find more Jesus Ferreiras to build around him. Now we're building the level of the teams and building the level of the league and starting to take that next step where we can prove the league, improve the teams, improve the talent, and then ultimately that improve people's desire to come play in the league and see this as like the top of the staircase. So
Correct. And
I
that's,
do think I feel like we're on the same I think we're on the same page.
yeah.
It's just not we're not saying the exact same words. It's
Right,
basically
right.
I
And
think
I think
where we're at.
to end that before you go to your question, I think that is what this increase in spending ability is going to do over the next 4 years. Is going to give you that ability to say, okay, this guy wants to go, that's fine, but I can also throw a bag at him and see if it'll stay. Because at the end of the day, and I know people will complain about this all the time, but at the end of the day, players go to leagues for one thing and one thing only: money. If A team throws a bag at you, you are going. It's plain and simple. You know, when Insigne and Bernadeschi go to Toronto, it's they're just going there to get a bunch of money and retire. Sure. Messi went to PSG for what reason? Because he wanted a new challenge after winning it? No. Because PSG threw a bag at him and said, we're going to put a wonder team around you. You're going to win everything in the world. And then he ended up not winning everything in the world. Why did Ronaldo go to Saudi Arabia? Money. Why did Holland go to City over probably Bayern Munich was probably in there, I'm sure. Money, right? Everybody goes somewhere for money. Very rarely. This is my favorite example of that is Alex Song going to Barcelona. I'm sure you've seen this story before. Alex Song went to Barcelona as a replacement for whoever they maybe Yaya Toure when he left. It was like the next step up. They told him, "Hey, you're not going to play for 4 years until we can get you developed the way you want to go." And he said directly to the camera, "I don't give a damn if I play ever again. You're giving me $1 million and change a season. I'll sit on the bench all day long if you're going to give me $1 million a season." I mean, how much more you're talking about a guy going to Barcelona who everybody talks about, oh, they go for the heritage or the history or no. People go there because Barcelona throw monopoly money at them and then they get all upset when they don't actually have money to pay it. Sorry, now I'm going off on a tangent. Please ask me your question.
Just one point on that. I do think that the heritage does probably play some point in it because I would imagine once you have a bunch of clubs that just have ridiculous, endless amounts of money to throw at you, there's got to be some kind of differentiator at that point. And I'm sure it differs depending on each player. Like in Holland's situation, I think he was just like a perfect fit for City. And it's not to say that someone like Madrid or PSG couldn't throw the same amount of money at him as Man City did. But I think some of it is, the current team situation, and maybe some of it is the background of the club. Like when Hazard left to go to Madrid, like he could easily got that money from another team, hell, even Chelsea. But he went to Madrid because he wanted to play for Madrid. That was like his dream club to play for. So I think prestige plays some part in it, but I do think money is like 85% of the driver.
Correct. So what I'll say is right. Why did Mbappe not go to Real Madrid when they came knocking and stay at PSG? Because they literally gave him ownership of the club. I mean,
yeah, of course,
right? Like at the end of the day, yes, there might if a top 4 team historically, Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, I'll say Monaco. I don't know where they are anymore. And then go to Italy and say Milan, Inter, Juve, Napoli. Any of those clubs come calling for a player in MLS, yeah, they're probably going to jump because they grew up all their life to do there. If you're telling me a club from Belgium or German second division is coming calling for a player in MLS, nobody's going there because of heritage and history. They're going there because the Europeans are paying them 3 times as much to do the same job. And that's the end of the day. And that's where you're going to see, as we continue to raise our ceiling in terms of money, you're going to see more and more people choose to stay. We're going to raise the floor of our teams while also allowing more people to come in with bigger and better price tags. And again, we are moving in the right direction, no doubt. But to wrap this up, finish up with your question.
Yes. So my question, now that we are like way off the tangent from where
I
the
wouldn't say
question
off
actually
the
related
tangent.
to.
I wouldn't say off the tangent. I'd say we were continuing.
Well, you don't even know what my question is about. You don't even know what my question is
your
about.
question is off the tangent. Okay, I thought you
Yeah,
meant like
no,
our
not our
entire
conversation.
25-minute
No.
conversation was off tangent.
No. My question to you, and this relates to us building up the kids through the academy and selling them up onto Europe. How much of that do you think is actually bringing attention to MLS versus it's just good for like our national team to have these guys getting more competition, better style of play. If you look at a Mark McKenzie sale, like how much of that is really bring to light what MLS is capable of producing and selling on, or like a Jean-Luc Busio to Venezia. Like I don't think people in Europe are seeing those moves and being like, MLS is like producing talent. Like let's keep an eye on it. Like we don't have to watch the games. Like hey, let's keep an eye on the guys that are moving there. Versus like, in my opinion, it just feels like these moves aren't necessarily for the attention of MLS, but more so good for the national team in terms of getting competition for spots.
I think I agree with you. I don't think that it's doing a ton for international viewership. I would agree with you on that. That is where the players coming from, the Insigne, the Gareth Bale, the Zlatan, the players that are coming over to play here, that's what's bringing the eyes to the league. The players that we are producing and selling over and performing at the national team level might be keeping them. But I don't think the sale of players is increasing our viewership in terms of international fans. However, what I will say is that it is increasing the number of eyes from both talent scouts, right? Scouts for teams that are looking for players, which is good, but it also is looking at agents, right? Agents and scouts work together, I'm assuming relatively closely, saying, hey, you know, my guy wants to make a jump to your team. Clearly, he's not at that level. Where should he go where you're going to keep an eye on him? If they say that we're pulling 7 players a year at MLS, that's where you're going, man. And that's easy. So I wouldn't. I'd say it's less about getting eyes on the league as a bunch of fans, but growing the popularity of the league amongst the players. And when it becomes a choice for players, when players are choosing to come here, whether it be to stay forever or to jump, because it could be both, that's when people are going to start realizing, okay, there's a reason people are going, right? And again, you'll have your Euro snobs that make it whatever reason they want without it actually being the real reason. But the people who understand the league, the people who follow it, will understand what it's all
Okay, I think that's fair. It's a good point.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the point on the scouts and the agents working together. I think definitely more agents, even from like South America, have realized that like this really good gateway at this point to getting players into Europe. Like obviously, Europe scouts Argentina, Brazil, South America in general directly, but I think them moving to MLS definitely has helped a lot too. I mean, we definitely need to do more sales for players from South Africa. I mean, sorry, South America. Um, because we really honestly we've spent a lot of money on bringing in big name players. We haven't sold a lot to Europe yet. I see Duran, I see Almiron, and I think that's about it for the top 25. So I think there's still work to be done. But yeah, I mean I think it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, right, it's not a secret that South Americans and Europeans play the game better than us for the style that is desired in Europe. Two different games between here and in Europe, or here and in South America. That's not a secret. People understand that. So there's this choice, and now I put on my coaching hat and think about, if we want to develop players that are going to make an impact at these big European teams, we have to coach them like a European setup. And that's where we find our issue, is the fact that here you can look at a team like Red Bull, which will played a game this weekend with 27% possession. They didn't even make an attempt to keep the ball. They just knocked it long and tried to win the second. which is not, I mean, it's great for championship level teams because that's how the championship runs. But the Premier League's, the big top teams are not playing that way. They want players to understand the game. They want them to understand all four phases. They want them to understand all this, high level tactical knowledge, which is why I think we're getting there. Because if you look at the other non Red Bull teams in the league, it looks brilliant sometimes. There is some really, really good play going on in this league. One, because we're bringing in the players who know how to do it. But again, we're taking that floor and we're teaching them at a young age what it means to be tactically aware in the sense of football, what it means to play as a number 6, what it means to play as a number 7 or an 11, right? What it means to be an inverted winger or a playmaking number 10, or how to find the split pass when we want it, or how to zigzag it out of the back instead of just dump it long. All these little things are creating stepping stones for us to get to that level. And when we combine the American talent that we're bringing up with the international youth that have learned it in a different sense, and the other international higher level players that have done it at the high level for a while, you're creating a better product on the field. And that's where we are going with this. It's less, I think the worry is less about if we are going to get there, and the worry is about, and that is the big question mark. And I think 2026, the World Cup is going to have a big impact on that. But the World Cup and the impact on the footballing nature of this country is a completely other episode that we can talk for hours.